I'm going to speak about Mind in the Making and Room. They are partner initiatives and have been for the last 4 years. And to talk about we all have what it takes and we're going to have to use what it takes to bring about the kind of change that we want. I began, as Jacqueline said, with a question: what do we know to keep the fire for children, fire in children's eyes burning brightly, because they tend to lose it as they get older? And actually, Matthew helped me with the first turning point in that journey. He did focus groups with parents, finding out what they needed. So, Mira, we did start with parents. The very first step was starting with parents. And they said they wanted to know the research, but then they said, research. You say eat hamburgers, and then you say don't eat hamburgers. You say drink red wine, and then don't drink red wine. They said, we want to know who that researcher is and how he or she knows about my child. So that began a journey that I've been on for now 17 years to look at the research and take virtual field trips and share it with families, and that's our purpose, and came up with 7 real-life skills that are all based on promoting executive functions. So I'm going to tell you briefly what we've done so that this makes sense. We've created modules that share this information with families and with professionals in a community. Again, co-creation was what we did. We created modules, we took them to Portland. They worked, they didn't work, we changed them. This is with families and professionals. And about, I think, 17 iterations later, they're still in a notebook because we keep co-creating them with the families and the professionals we work with. What's different about these modules is that we bring together the leaders in a community to learn them together. So we try to break down the silos that Ralph was talking about. We think that creates to a better system alignment, so it's families and professionals in the 0 to 8 space. And we think we're redefining family engagement because families and professionals are learning these together. It's not, I'm the expert, you're the dumb parent. We're learning it, they're learning it together. They're going on a learning journey together. We've also, the Bezos Family Foundation has created Room, also started with families, a whole summer of listening to families. They also wanted to know research, but they wanted to have, they didn't have enough time and enough money, and so they wanted these small brain-building moments that they could take, everyday moments, and turn them into fun things, not tedious, teachy-preachy sort of things that they could do with families. And you all probably know the Room app, and I'm here with Marissa Kaiser, who will talk more about that later, about what Room is doing. We also created, and Kyle talked about this before, we have a library of close to 100 books, and we've created tip sheets of ways to read them that promote executive function life skills. We have taken the questions that parents ask and the behavior challenges that they have with their kids, and we've turned them into tips again, but that say, instead of seeing this as your bad kid, let's look at it as an opportunity to promote a life skill. So we're trying to reframe the discussion. We have take-home Friday tips for the weekends so that teachers can put them in kids' backpacks. Again, fun things that you could do in the everyday moments, written at a 3rd to 5th grade level, 250 to 300 characters that take, you know, the everyday moments that happen. So what do we learn? That's the question that Jacqueline posed to us. And first, it's relationships, stupid. This is all about relationships, so everything we do is based on building relationships on the ground floor, and there are 10 tenets. We begin with adults. We don't begin with children, and I think we're quite different in that because we think that unless adults are on this learning journey for themselves and about themselves first, they're not going to be able to share this with their children. So very important to us that adults are looking at their own life skills and how they work and learning from each other and then sharing that with families. And remember, parents and teachers, parents and professionals are learning this together. We base the way we present the modules. It's an evidence-based theory, but these are to promote engaged learning and life skills. So we have 10 tenets, and we teach them exactly the way we think kids learn, so that parents have a different experience and professionals have a different experience of teaching and learning. For example, we give people real life experiences. If you're about to see the still face experiment, which you see on the screen, you'll get that experiment to do with yourselves first, and then you don't forget what it's like to be sitting next to someone who doesn't respond to you. It changes the way you think about your own communication. We are inspirational rather than teachy preachy. That is my cute grandson. Okay, moving right along. I just had to tell you. We take the research and we use it to inform the hot issues in our field. For example, Dana's going to talk about the 30 million word gap, but we will, for example, share the research of Kathy Hirsch-Pasek and Roberta Golenkoff and Lauren Adamson, showing that it's conversational duets that's the most important, not the number of words that kids hear. We don't think that an adult intervention by itself will change things, so we include children's interventions. We've partnered with Megan McClellan with her Circle Time games that teach executive function skills in the circle time that teachers always have with kids. Very evidence-based program. We're going to be partnering with Tools in the Mind in New York City. We don't set goals for people. People set goals for themselves. Even parents don't set goals for their children. They help their children learn how to set goals, and we think that's really important. So, and we use, again, the best research, Gabrielle Oettingen's research that shows that thinking positively doesn't necessarily lead to positive results. You have to look at the obstacle and come up with an if-then plan for handling it. We want to be in the water and in the air. We take a community surround approach, so we try to be everywhere, working with all the sectors and community leaders that touch the lives of children. I have a handout if this is going way too fast. We've worked with schools. We went into the Coalition of Community Schools, important because they meet the other needs of low-income families, so that an educational intervention can make a difference. We're working in healthcare because if you talk about 0 to 3, 99% of families have a healthcare home or see a doctor in some way or another, and we think that's the first place to intervene. So pediatricians are learning these life skills. We're turning waiting rooms into rooms, learning rooms. We're creating all kinds of materials for new families when they have babies based on Mind in the Making and Vroom. Museums and libraries, we've adapted the modules for museums and libraries and trained people in 30 states. We're about to work with parents as teachers through Every Child Succeeds and incorporate Vroom and Mind in the Making into home visit. You can see that we don't have small ambition. We're working with brands. If you buy Johnson's baby shampoo in the future, you're going to get a Vroom tip on it. Likewise, Goya actually even changed its packaging. So there'll be tips for those. Again, we try to be in the everyday moments where families don't have to spend any more time or any more money, but use these moments to have fun with their kids in ways that promote executive function, life skills. We've also working with media. Wish and Poof is based on the 7 essential life skills. And we're evaluating what we're doing through rigorous research. For example, in the Evansville Public Schools, our early results show that it's 6 weeks of the intervention, and the intervention lasts longer than that, but kids gained 6 months of growth in executive function skills, and it also improved their math. Now we're in the middle of a random school assignment evaluation. And Providence, using Mind in the Making, has an I3 grant so that all of the families from pre-K through the 3rd grade are getting Mind in the Making. They've trained 1,500 families, and they've trained 500 professionals, and that includes the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers. We are genuinely, it's very, very important to us to take a surround approach. So I'm going to end with the notion that what we've learned is that everybody has to be involved, and that we have to begin with what we all have.
So I'm going to use my 12 minutes to talk about several things. Those of you I think probably know 0 to 3. For almost 40 years, we've been advancing the proven power of early connections. We translate what we know from the science of early childhood development into practical knowledge and resources for parents, for professionals, and policymakers. And we have loads of resources video, podcasts, written materials, all sorts of things that I haven't even understand how to use. But go to our website. I'm not going to spend time today telling you about what we have for you. It's there, it's available. I like to spend time really telling you what we have learned from parents, because I think that has a big impact on what you do. So with the Bezos Family Foundation and Vroom, we have just concluded a national parent survey of millennial parents. We really want to know and find out what parents of young children know and don't know about the deep impact that early experiences have on their child's long-term development, what the challenges that they're struggling with the most, and really getting into how their own childhood experiences impact how they approach child rearing, and really help them to hold up that mirror in the box to understand that, and also know what kind of parenting information they need and how they want it delivered. So we're going to have in-depth results later in May. I'm going to encourage you to go to our website when we release that to get those results. What I'm going to do today is to talk about what we learned from extensive focus group work. And Ellen mentioned the focus groups that she saw we did many years ago. We do those all the time. We even changed the way we do them now. It's no longer behind the glass with a bunch of strangers in a room. You actually go to a parent's house, they recruit their friends, you get them to talk, you cut through all the stuff and get to the really hard stuff right away. So what have we learned from the qualitative research so far? They get it. They get that the early years are important. Now, this may seem like a surprise, but for those of us who have been doing this work for a long time, this is the first generation of parents that I can tell you, they get it. They understand the early years are important. There are some big gaps, and we'll talk about those in the survey research. There are some big gaps about what they understand, particularly, and this is a spoiler alert, they don't quite get what's really happening in the first year of life. They think all the stuff that's happening in the first year is really, they think it's happening in the second and third year. And that's the big job that we have, before us. They also want to parent very differently from how they were parented, and you will see and hear that. They also want to get and to receive information differently than what we, and at least in my generation and others, have gotten. They get that these early years are important. They all understand this truth across the board, across demographic groups. Some find this really, really motivating. They are really, really excited by this. Others are terrified by it. And in fact, one said, now I've screwed them up, and there's nothing I can do to go back and fix it. It's a death sentence. So our job is to help them understand, yes, it is motivating, it is terrifying, it is the hardest job we will ever have, but we can, in fact, learn. And I think part of what they're understanding is that parenting can be learned. They get it. And they're open and receptive to the fact that parenting can, in fact, be learned. Now, they want to do it differently. They really understand that intuitively. So let's see what they say in their own voices.
When I was little, my dad used to beat our butts with, belts and stuff. And now that I'm my age and I have my kids, I don't want to hit my kids.
You don't want to discipline them how your mom or grandmother or grandfather disciplined you as a kid, because switches off of the trees. Oh, you guys, y'all know what I'm talking about. Belts,
My
the
dad's
belts,
old.
rulers.
I don't want to be feared. No. And again, I want respect and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to be looked at as the boogeyman.
Todd knows how many things that I experienced as a child that I would not want my child to experience. We're all going to make mistakes. You try not to make as many as perhaps you felt like your parents may have made with you.
So it's okay to make mistakes. There is no such thing as a bad mistake if you gain something from it. It's not a loss if you have a growth, a learning experience. All parents across the board are getting that. We need to build on that in our work. We need to reinforce for them that, yes, there's not this sort of perfect model. They see people on TV and they think they're supposed to be like them, at least some of the people on TV. And we have to say that you have to acknowledge them where they are and what they get. So we have to validate parents, validate their feelings, their experiences. We have to make sure that they understand that there are redos, there's permission. You're not going to always get it right. You can go back and do it again. That there are opportunities, and you have to build in opportunities to understand what you're doing and create a learning loop for yourself, to be able to stand and watch and listen and to take that moment. And they have to, most importantly, and this goes to the remarks that Mira made early, non-judgmental support. parents feel judged. They feel judged by everybody who's looking at them and making judgments about who they are. They're feeling judged by their spouse or by their partner. There's a lot of judgment that's going on, and we have to be working with parents to help them be released of that level of judgment. Here's an example. Play the video, please.
I don't like that I yell, and I do. I'm like, okay, just relax, try to handle it a different way. What's another way?
But then, a few minutes later, you go back, you apologize.
You just have to take a deep breath and just deal with it and put them in the corner and then walk away from it.
So part of what they're saying is we know we don't do it right. We want to do it better. So we need to have more opportunities. So what are we learning? Big meta things that we're learning from parents. This is not, again, this is qualitative. This is not coming from the national survey. They're looking for a new roadmap. They really are aware of the role that they play, the power of parenting. They understand that they have this significant impact on their child's development and on their future. They're recognizing that a lot of their strategies are not working, that may not be positive, and they really want to do better. Particularly parents who are using really punitive measures in terms of discipline. They actually understand it doesn't work, but they can't figure out what else to do, and they're looking for other models for that. They want to do different things differently from their own parents. They don't have the trusted resources. This is really a big change from what we've seen in all of our survey research before. It used to be that moms would say, I went to my mom for advice. They're not saying that anymore. They're going to the internet. They're going to their friends. They're not going to their moms for advice. They also want to connect with each other. They want to find ways to be able to learn and talk from each other electronically and in person, and that's a big, I think, challenge in the communities where we're working. So let's show one more brief video that I think sums up for how I think what parents are talking about of what it is they want to do.
There may be times I went outside when I was a kid throwing the football to myself, because Dad wasn't there throwing the football with me, so I want to be there to be the catcher, basically. I want to be the catcher. I want them to know that they always got a safety net.
He wants to know that he's the safety net. And so many parents say that, so many dads say that. I want to say that we've done a lot of research on dads and what dads are telling us. Boy, they feel dissed. They feel dissed in the media. They feel dissed by their partners. They really get it. They want to be engaged. That's another big piece that we have to be working on. How parents get and receive information, just quickly. They are more dependent on their peers than their own parents these days. We're seeing that in the data. They go to the internet, but they don't trust a lot of what they're seeing on the internet, but they go there. They're looking for things. They are wary of experts who don't get it. They want to talk to somebody that actually has seen their child and seen them, and not some stranger who's just pontificating about this. They welcome opportunities to talk with other parents. They really want to engage and learn from each other, and they want to get relevant information when they need it. They want to get it on their mobile devices. They want to get it through text and through apps. So what are the opportunities? Very quickly, you know these. Healthy Steps. Ellen mentioned where all babies go is to the pediatrician. Healthy Steps is the realization of the pediatric medical home. It's having embedded in that pediatric setting somebody who understands early development, can answer questions, and when there are problems, can say something that the pediatrician doesn't usually say, which is, oh, he'll grow out of it, but say, yes, I hear you. I understand that you think that there's a problem. Let's figure out really what that is and get you connected to the services. Text for Baby, where parents are getting texting messages about early development. Both Healthy Steps and Text for Babies are run by 0 to 3. Early Head Start. This, to me, continues to be the national platform for doing it right, how we do it, how we leverage those resources in Early Head Start. One is through these Early Head Start child care partnerships. And finally, the National Home Visiting Program. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Dana?
Except that's not me.
That's not Dana? Okay.
That's not me.
There you are.
There I am. So unlike these two esteemed individuals, I am not esteemed. I've only been doing this for about 5 years, and I'm a researcher at the University of Chicago. So I want to start off with saying I don't have all the answers. I can only share with you what I've learned on our journey in research. So what's interesting to me is that all of a sudden everybody's saying, oh, look, parents are really important. We've tried everything else. And maybe it's because I've come in from the outside and sort of come in because of seeing the differences in outcomes of my patients that it seems just so amazing. Because, oh my goodness gracious, because the research is so clear. Do you know how to go back? The research is so clear. Can anybody help me? That really parent and caregiver input in the first 3 years mediates the differences in brain development in those locations that are so important for academic achievement, the prefrontal area, the temporal area. And these changes, these impacts in brain development are what mediate the differences in academic trajectories, which then mediate the impacts on human capital development, really the economic impact. So the science is so clear, so the fact that, the rest of the world haven't acted on what we all know is so important is quite amazing to me, because in the end of the day, unless we find effective, empowering ways to engage parents, we're never going to do justice to their children. So before I jump into sort of what we've learned, what are we? We're really just a research program at the University of Chicago, taking a public health approach to early childhood education, looking at it really at a population health perspective. We develop evidence-based interventions based on the science, hoping to disseminate across multiple community touchpoints. We are still very much in the randomized control trial phase, hopefully in the next year or so beginning to disseminate. In the realm of engagement, really we take what I like to call a growth mindset parenting approach. It goes back to what Ralph said. What was that very powerful statement that he said? How do we catalyze the moral imperative to action? It's the knowledge that the action will make a difference. And I think that is meaningful for all of us, and it's meaningful for parents. Because unless parents truly understand the impact that they have on brain development, as Ellen mentioned, as everyone mentioned, why act? I mean, it's, their whole world is telling them, you are powerless. Intergenerational poverty, lack of social mobility, why would you believe? And the only true thing that demonstrates it to be different is the science. So we spend a lot of time translating the science. Very similar to what Ellen mentioned, we take a surround sound approach in the development of our interventions, meeting families where they are, maternity wards, pediatricians' offices, home visiting, child care, et cetera. So what are some of the important things? Framing and words matter. For whatever reason, when I first began, I called it the 30 Million Words Initiative because that's the first study that I read. But in fact, framed in that way, it is absolutely a deficit model. What is truly the science show? The science shows the power of parent talk, really the power of parents. And so framing does matter. We take the conduit of language as a conduit into the whole parent-child relationship. And in the same way as if you said to somebody, hey, you want to be in a parenting intervention? In some ways that's sort of stigmatizing because it implies you're not such a great parent. In the same way, I think we can affect change in many ways, and this being one of them. Because in truth, parent language is really one of the best ways to get into the whole parent-child relationship, where language can impact not simply vocabulary, but social emotional development, literacy, math and spatial, executive function, et cetera. So going back to engagement, this slide comes from our home visiting program, and it really reminds me of what Mira said, the importance of partnering with parents. Everything that's developed must be done not in the sort of partnering with parents sort of way, but truly in partnering with parents. Because this actual example of explaining the importance of parents and parent language actually came from a parent. It didn't come from us. We took a child perspective of, how can you tell which child is going to be the smartest? And the parent actually said, why don't you do it from the parent perspective? So this is a small example of how we sort of allow parents to see how incredibly important they are. Each of these parents has a child your child's age. Just by looking at them, whose child will be the smartest? And of course, none of us know. If I showed you what they do, You're right. I didn't know which one you said, but you're right. If I showed you what they do for a living, does your answer change? And of course, that goes back to many of the constructs in our world that make us think that professions make a huge difference. And actually, it's very gratifying when I hear that parents say that the doctor's going to have the stupidest kid because she's always on call, because it's probably true. What if I showed you how much they talk with their child? What if I told you now that the janitor's child is ahead of the rest related to talking? How can we tell? Now, of course, this is really just a metaphor, but it really gives you a window into what parents are thinking and believing. Because if you start off saying, hey, you know what, I have this profession and there's no way that my child's going to achieve what I want them to achieve or achieve as somebody else's child, well, that's a non-starter. It's an important discussion point. And in the same way, we translate the brain science in sort of a similar way. This is another example of how we hopefully allow parents to see, to obtain really a growth mindset approach to growing a child's brain. And this comes from a newborn intervention. And you can see what, oops, help. I'm having
Your baby's brain is like a sponge absorbing everything going on around him. What he soaks in right now builds connections in his brain. Every word you say strengthens your baby's brain.
You see me? Yeah. You know my voice?
She's been able to hear you talk since halfway through your pregnancy.
Yeah, you big boy.
Every snuggle you share strengthens his brain. When you hold your baby close, you make him feel safe and secure.
We just want you to sleep like this tonight.
Even the diapers you change strengthen your baby's brain. When you respond to your baby's needs, you show her she can count on you to be there. Just by talking, just by caring, just by responding, you build your baby's brain.
Now, I want to make two important points for those who are not scientists. That's not exactly how the brain connections occur. And number two, I want you to see how you can use the conduit of language into responsive parenting, attachment, etc. So those are really important points. The next step to sort of engaging and empowering parents is understanding sort of this idea of scarcity. Look, all of us are stretched beyond stretched. And what constitutes a rich early language environment, a responsive environment, really is quite complex. And what we've done is we've culled it down to what we call the 3 T's. Tune in, talk more, and take turns. Tune in is just as it sounds, tuning into your child's interest. Sorry, I had my 2-minute warning. Child's interest, following your child's lead, using child-directed speech. Talk more is just as it sounds, using rich vocabulary, talking about the past, future, and present. And take turns is really viewing your child as a conversational partner from day one. And these 3 T's go through all of our behavioral interventions. We then show Next, I'm going to show you a little bit of modeling that we do. This comes from our Well Baby intervention. Very quickly. We work to have a diverse parent population.
Can I get a smile? Thank you.
Yeah? You promise you'll sleep tonight?
Recurrent theme.
You will? All right.
Oh, big yawn!
Every day is something new.
You have a great day and you think you know how to do everything. You think, I am the best mother in the world.
And then there's some days where she just can't seem to get comfortable, can't seem to be fed enough, it seems like, or can't seem to sleep enough.
I realized that, I just need to have a lot of patience, and at every stage is different.
I feel like I'm getting to know them better every day, every moment.
There go the good stuff. That was your hungry cry. I know your hungry cry. I was on it.
So these are just little examples of how you engage parents. I wish I had a magic formula or a magic bullet. There are no such things. But really, I think meeting parents where they are, providing them with the empowering science that truly shows that they are the key architects of their children's brain development. And I'd just like to end off with really the importance of science as the basis for real social change, because there are many things that can look like they're impacting, but really we need to be able to demonstrate that so that every child can truly reach their potentials. And that's it.
Thank you.
Note one quick thing, which is that you referred to both Ellen and I as esteemed, which I take code for. We've been doing this stuff for a really, really long time. I can live with that. I did have hair once. But this is Dana's birthday, so she's getting closer to us.
It's Dana's birthday, and she's very shy about saying this, but she's got a flight that she's got to get. So if she runs out, we will understand. She's very concerned that we'll think she's being. It's for her. Oh, really? You pulled that one? That's okay. Thank you so much. I think you've learned a lot about the early years.